Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Hub World podcast. This is our special 30th episode, part 2. We are breaking down the GameCube essentials. If you haven't watched our part 1, you may want to do that first to get an idea of the short list we've created. But essentially what we're doing is we're doing another one of our system essentials. We're deliberating the 5 essential games from a console. If you want to hear all the details of how we do that, again, check out our part 1. In our part 1 episode, our cast here deliberated 17 games from the GameCube system as the essential games. I should let them introduce themselves to you. So I'm Jules. I'm mediating. I haven't been mediating very well. I did kind of contribute during part 1, and maybe I'll contribute a bit here, but I'm joined by
Matteo.
I'm Adriano.
Sarah.
And Riley.
These guys made an awesome list last episode, 17 awesome games. So I'm going to just read those out to you right now, just so that our viewers at home can be reminded what those 17 games are. But our 17 games that we had distinguished were F-Zero GX, Paper Mario Thousand Year Door, Metroid Prime, Pokemon Colosseum, Super Mario Strikers, Luigi's Mansion, Super Smash Bros. Melee, Kirby Air Ride, Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker, Super Mario Sunshine, Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes, Soul Calibur 2, Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg, Animal Crossing, Star Fox Adventures, Star Fox Assault, and Pikmin 2. And somehow from this list of 17 awesome GameCube games, we're going to whittle it down to 5. So let's kick off that discussion. Now, I don't know if you guys need any leading questions to start the discussion or if I should just leave it to you guys, but for now I'm going to leave it to the floor. You guys can figure it out. Have at it.
I'm gonna go out right away and just say I'll take Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg off because it hasn't been re-released. It's on more of the expensive side for GameCube games, and it's a super niche game that I think I'm the only one that's played it out of us, and I don't think it's among the 5 essential games on GameCube that we've at least have nominated here. There's definitely 5 games that I would deem essential above it, so I'd be willing just to axe Billy Hatcher right away.
Awesome. So if we're going to go and axe some of our recommendations, just to make it easier for discussion purposes, I'll go ahead and axe Animal Crossing off of mine as well. Not because I don't think that Animal Crossing is an amazing GameCube game and it is unique. I do think that there is an Animal Crossing that is better and that I would recommend over the GameCube Animal Crossing. And I don't think that Animal Crossing is an essential GameCube experience, nor is it an exclusive GameCube experience. And I will say that New Leaf is my favorite Animal Crossing game. So we'll go ahead and leave it at that.
I think the same thing can be said about Soul Calibur 2, so I'll axe that.
So we have removed Billy Hatcher and the Giant Egg, we've removed Animal Crossing, and we removed Soul Calibur 2. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're down to 14 games.
I'm just looking at the list right now. I'm trying to compare things to each other to see like stuff that's in similar genres, stuff like that. Realistically, I like all of these games. I've played all these games. I think Star Fox Adventures, Dinosaur Planet, and Star Fox Assault, though, like I just don't think. I'm not super high on Assault, and I love it, Dinosaur Planet, but like if I compare Wind Waker to Dinosaur Planet, I would never pick Dinosaur Planet over Wind Waker,
Calling it
like
Dinosaur Planet?
ever. Star Fox
Well,
Adventures, Dinosaur
it
Planet.
is the alternate name. Yeah.
Let's pick
Thing-
Star Fox.
Thing is, Wind Waker you can play on Wii U. With
That is
all the-
true.
All the game of life, with all the quality
But
of
is
life
that
upgrades.
applicable to this conversation, or did we rule that out as one of the?
We didn't rule it out, but just
As
saying,
if
you
it's
can't
playable on a.
you can't play Star
late
Fox Adventure anywhere.
But the thing is, though, like I've beaten that game, and like going back to it and looking and reflecting upon that experience, it's just like the ending of that game is not what it should have been. It should have been way better than what it was. I don't want to get into spoilers, but it was super disappointing, and like it really like deflated the experience for me. And like as much as I like the Warp Stone, and I personally like Tricky the Dinosaur, but you have like Wind Waker as a masterpiece type game, and then like Star Fox Adventures is like an 8. It's not like an apples and oranges comparison. In terms of quality, it's like one's leagues higher than the other, from my point of view at least. Like I don't know. And there's just a couple like hair pulling moments too in Dinosaur Planet. I don't think there was anything really like that in Wind Waker.
Adrian, you nominated Star Fox Adventures. Do you have anything to say?
I'm not pulling Star Fox Adventures. I
Well,
already
it's
pulled
also
one.
not your sole responsibility to pull it.
Oh, we should go vote.
You can always revisit. Like if you don't want to eliminate it now, like maybe you need to reduce the list a bit and then revisit it. But if you want to vote on it now, why don't you? So Matteo, for or against Star Fox Adventures?
Against.
Sarah, for or against Star Fox Adventures?
I've never played Star Fox Adventures. I think that Wind Waker is among the top 5 in every single GameCube game that's ever come out. So if we're arguing between Wind Waker and a game that I've never played, I'm going to pick Wind Waker. But I won't let my vote affect people who actually have like a genuine opinion on that game.
Well, it's not between Wind Waker or that game.
Well,
Not
that was what the
necessarily.
discussion was, is that they're similar.
Oh.
So would you rather have one that's similar?
You can have 2 of similar games, like as long as not the whole list is Zelda likes.
Sure. We do have 2 Star Fox games, though. We should eliminate at least one of them. I don't
We
know.
don't have to do that now, though.
Yeah.
I suppose that's true.
I'm the way y'all are for maybe not to the same extent, but the way y'all are for Zelda, I am for Star Fox.
Fair.
Well,
We're very
I've-
passionate.
I've never played Assault, so hey Riley, you're the Star Fox guy. I mean, what would you choose, Adventure or Assault?
I think if any game has to go now, I would not put Assault. I would not at all be okay with Assault going before Kirby Air Ride.
So would you say that Assault is among the top 5 comparing Assault and Adventures?
I don't think you should look at it as a before or after because we aren't quantifying when a game goes. I think the only question you should be asking yourself when you're talking about a game is this one of the 5 most essential GameCube games? And if your answer isn't yes, then you should be eliminating it. If your answer is maybe, then you should let it stick around, but
I
I
think
wouldn't
it's
look at
maybe.
it. Yeah, I just wouldn't look at it like
I can't be unless it's hard for me to be objective about the things that I like.
Right.
When there's things that I blatantly despise still on here.
yes, but that's the thing is again, you shouldn't be quantifying in comparison. Don't look at it like, well, this thing is on and I think this is better. It should just be about the game. This isn't
So,
really
Riley,
a
what do you want to
bargain.
remove?
Kirby Air Ride, I think, should be the first thing to go.
Well, how do you guys feel?
I really don't like that because like Kirby Air Ride is
Well, why don't we do
arguably
this?
the best multiplayer game on the GameCube.
That's
put
to you. I don't think anyone
Hundreds and
else
hundreds
thinks
and
that.
hundreds of hours. Like I can genuinely recommend that game to most people, and I think most people would enjoy that game.
Why don't we do this, okay? Why don't we I'll start giving you some like mediation topics and you can like mediate from there. Okay. So let's start with Kirby Air Ride, okay?
Yeah.
So you have 2 racing games on the list. You have Kirby Air Ride and you have F-Zero GX. Now the first thing we should ask is, and this should be a yes or no from each and every person, should there be 2 racing games on this list? I don't care if you don't tell me if you don't think any should be on. I just want to know, should there be 2?
No.
There
No.
is in my eyes, there is a possibility for both of them because they're both dramatically different racing games.
Okay,
So-
but the general consensus is no. So that's the thing. That's the next question. So the general consensus.
If there's a chance that 2 Star Fox games can be on here, there's a chance that 2
We're not talking about
dramatically
Star
different.
Fox. We're not talking about Star Fox though. So we're mediating this. Okay, so this is the topic first. So the consensus is no. There should not be 2 racing games on this list. So the next thing is this or that. So we're not saying which should be on the list. We're not saying either game is going to go on the list, but which of these games should be removed now. So we'll just go by vote and just tell me which one you can remove. And it is valid to say, I didn't play this game and therefore I don't want it on the list because ultimately this list should represent your experiences. And if more of you have played one of the games, that might be the case. But that doesn't, you can also make a case for it right now before we do the vote. So does anybody want to make a case for either of the games before we do a vote?
Well, I haven't played Kirby's Air Ride, so I can't really
Did
vouch for
you
it.
play Kirby?
I did, but you know what? I nominated it based off mostly because I have played it and it's exclusive to the GameCube. But a lot of people have told me how much they love it.
I would have nominated Kirby's Air Ride. Like that was in my 5, right? I want to make a case for both games because they're just so dramatically different. Like F-Zero GX is your classic arcade style racer, like a Daytona type game that really has not, like that genre has basically been erased like the 3D platformer's been erased. Like it's on somewhat of a comeback now, but like you can't really get that experience on a console really anywhere, and especially this is F-Zero at its greatest, and that is meaningful, I think, because at one like F-Zero is a technical showcase type game. It had vehicle customization before Mario Kart. It had the anti-gravity like high speed racing before Mario Kart. Such a deep cast of characters, such deep lore, and a story mode that was really compelling. Like there isn't anything like that Nintendo's made since, really, to be honest with you. And then
think
Kirby Air
then-
Ride on the
Uh.
opposite side is one of the greatest multiplayer games on the system. Has its oozing of charm, very similar to F-Zero, and like you can dump hundreds and hundreds of hours into that game because the gameplay loop is so addictive and so awesome, and like they're just totally different. Like Kirby's Air Ride, I don't even consider it a racing game, to be honest with you, because you don't really race in that game. And one of the modes that if you really want to play something else besides City Trial, I think you're kind of wasting your time. But in City Trial itself, the only time you race is when one of the over a dozen games you could potentially play is a race. So they're not really like, I really don't like calling Kirby Air Ride a racing game for that reason, to be honest with you.
And that's valid, but I'm gonna bounce back with that just as a mediator and just say like, sure, but if you are discounting an entire aspect of the game, is the game really worth being put on the list? So I do think you should take the game in its entirety.
I'm not really discounting it, where I'm more saying like there's this one mode that is such a standout mode that like realistically you want to play it more for that. I guess it is kind of a discount. Like I'm kind of discounting it, but I'm not at the same time. Because like
Yeah, no, I know.
I'm just fun
saying.
in the other modes. It's just like the most fun mode is that City Trial.
Ultimately, the reason I brought this one up is because realistically, I don't think your group is going to put both of these games on the list, and so I thought eliminating one would be good. So I think the case has generally been made. Why don't we just vote? So this or that. You're just voting which one to keep. You're not voting to keep none. And everybody should just take a stance because that will make it easier. So Matteo, which one would you keep? Like genuinely. Don't vote don't vote trying to predict other people.
Yeah,
just
yeah,
which
no,
one
but
would you
what it
genuinely
comes
choose?
down to, I think, is accessibility, and what I would recommend to someone if someone asked me. I think F-Zero can be too hardcore for some people, so I think I would have to go with Kirby Air Ride just because of how like entry level it is, and like you can have more. You have to put a lot of time into F-Zero to have fun with it, I think. So I think I have to go with Kirby Air Ride if I had to pick one.
Okay, and Sarah?
So my favorite GameCube racing game isn't even on this list, so I would argue that neither of them would be on my top 5, but for the sake of narrowing it down, I would say that F-Zero GX is probably my nominee.
Okay. Riley?
Okay, I would also, just given how brutally unfun all of my experiences with Kirby Air Ride are, I'd go with F-Zero.
And Adriano?
Okay, I actually have not played F-Zero GX, but honestly, given the way that Mateo's described it, I'm gonna vote for it.
What have I done?
Nope. Kirby Air Ride is now is now being removed from the list.
Oh god, I hate myself now. Jeez.
Again, things happen. So F-Zero GX is there for now. So why don't we move into the next one, which is the next obvious deliberation is the Star Fox games. So again, I think you've talked about Star Fox Assault and Adventures already. I think we can go right into a vote of which one to just keep. Again, this doesn't mean that they're going to make the top 5 list, but it does mean that one of them will be removed. So why don't we go the reverse order? Adriano, which one are you keeping?
Well, I have not played Assault, so I'm gonna go with Adventures.
Okay. And Riley?
I'm going to keep Assault for the same
Sarah?
reason, basically. I haven't played enough of Adventure to have it.
That's fair.
That's
valid.
exactly my reason. I've never played Star Fox Adventures. I enjoy Star Fox Assault, so I want to keep Star Fox Assault.
And Matteo?
I played both games and I like Adventures way more than Assault.
I think you're biased in that, but that's okay.
No,
I mean,
it's not-
everybody's biased. This
I
is
know,
a
that's
subjective
fair.
list.
Jules, you're the tiebreaker here, I think.
Well, if I'm the tiebreaker, and to be fair, not to toot my own horn, but I've played both of these games like
Superior.
10 plus times. Like I have a lot of experience with this game, and Star Fox Adventures is one of my favorite games of all time. That being said, I think Star Fox Assault is a better fit for a list like this because it offers more. it's a different type of game. Like it's Star Fox gameplay, which isn't something you're gonna find from other games. And then also like the multiplayer is so good. And I think that's ultimately for me what will, as the mediator, like pushing Assault into the list. While I love Star Fox Adventures, so I'm gonna make that call.
Nobody brings me votes anymore.
Sorry, Star Fox Adventures. Okay. So I think the other one to consider is you have a lot of Mario games represented on here. So maybe talking about those, like I don't necessarily want to put you guys to a vote, but talking about the fact that you have Paper Mario, you have Super Mario Strikers, you have Luigi's Mansion, you have Mario Sunshine. So why don't you talk about those 4 games? Talk about why or why not they should stay.
Man, I would argue that they're so different from each other, though. It's so hard to
Yeah,
compare.
They are.
Yeah, and
They
that's
are very different.
our list right now. It was so much easier. I think the last one that I listened in on was the N64, and your list wasn't as diverse. Like I feel like a lot of the N64 games were more comparable to each other, and the GameCube was so unique with most of its titles, and it's really hard to compare them. Like to compare Thousand Year Door with Mario Sunshine, you
Or
know,
Sunshine and Luigi's Mansion.
or
One
Strikers.
is literally Sunshine and one is literally Moon.
Oh, okay. So maybe this is too broad of a thing. Why don't we do this? Why don't we try to find if there's something that we can definitively put on your top 5 list? So something to
Sounds-
remove, not because we're removing it because it's not going to be considered, but something that you all agree should probably be on that list.
Sounds good.
So just based off of what people have said, I have a few that I think I'm going to pitch and see how people feel. And like this, again, if you say no, that doesn't necessarily mean that we're removing it. It just means that it might not be a definitive, like, yes, we are all comfortable.
Right.
So the first one I think that we can talk about that everybody seems to have a pretty strong attachment to is Super Smash Bros. Melee. How do people feel? Do you feel like you can say right now that 100% that goes on this list?
I can say that.
I wouldn't.
I wouldn't either.
I wouldn't either.
Okay, so that's it.
Yeah.
That can be the end of this, and we'll come back. We'll revisit Melee. How about Legend of Zelda: The Wind Waker?
I would. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No.
I wouldn't.
Okay, that's enough to not continue.
That's half and half.
Yeah, so we'll revisit. How about Luigi's Mansion?
I would.
Yeah, I would.
I wouldn't.
I don't think I would. At this point, I wouldn't.
And okay, so how about Paper Mario: Thousand Year Door?
I would.
I would.
Yes.
I wouldn't.
Now, how do I deliberate this? Because there's 3v1. So
Well,
like
it doesn't matter. No, I'm kidding.
Well, it was 3v1 for Melee, wasn't it?
it was 3v1 for it not being on.
You know what? I'm going to change my vote. I'm going to say no.
Well, we're back at square one.
This podcast is going to be like 12 Angry Jurors.
Yeah, it's definitely gonna be like 200 jurors. Okay, why don't we do this? Let's just go bottom to top from the list and see if we can eliminate anything. Pikmin 2, should it stay? Yes or no?
No.
No.
I like Pikmin, but like I can't see it being in the 5, honestly.
I like Pikmin, but I've never played Pikmin 2.
Me too.
I didn't start with GameCube on Pikmin, so unfortunately I can't really have a solid opinion.
Pikmin is gone. Metal Gear Solid: The Twin Snakes. How do people feel?
I've never played it. I have no opinion on the game, so
I wouldn't say it's iconic to GameCube.
I agree, yeah. And did they remake it where you can actually see the faces, or?
That was the remake.
This is the remake that you can see the faces. Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, I see. Wait, so is there another remake of this game?
No.
No, this is the remake. So this is a remake
Yeah.
of the PS1 game where it like fully redid everything.
Oh, I would vote for that then.
But have you played it?
Actually, I have.
Would it be on your top 5?
It's not in my top 5 though. No, that's a good point.
So wait, sorry. So Adriano's a no. Sarah's a no.
To know, yeah.
Yeah.
Mateo's a no.
I'm indifferent. I can't say either way, so
And Riley, did you say?
You know the answer to that one.
I'm assuming you want to keep it.
I do want to keep it, yes.
This is gonna be tough. I don't know how we're gonna deliberate this, but as of now, I'm not gonna remove anything right now. The only thing I removed was Pikmin because you all unanimously said, but I'm gonna put it on the lower tier. Like I'm tiering them right now.
Awesome. I'm glad you're keeping track.
Okay, Star Fox Assault. Yes or no?
I'd say no.
It wouldn't be on my top 5, but if it would be to y'all, I would be okay with it being on the top 5.
Same.
But it wouldn't be on mine, so no.
Yeah, same. It's the same thing.
But if you guys have a really strong argument for it, I could definitely back it.
I mean, if it was the best Star Fox game, I'd say yes.
That's
Okay,
true.
well, it's not that, to be fair, but
Well, yeah, if we agree that it's not, then maybe.
not the best Star Fox game ever on GameCube.
Yeah, GameCube. But maybe we should consider games that players have played on different consoles, like future versions or later versions, if we're talking about somebody now. Like, if it is, not the best. That's why I removed Animal Crossing, because I think that there is a better
Yeah.
Animal Crossing experience.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
We could look at a lot of games that way, though. Right now, I think that actually could be a
I don't like the precedent that sets.
well.
Sure, but the point is we have 11 games here and you have to narrow it down to 5, so there has to be at least some general criteria. And I think a good criteria to at least consider is this game, like, even though it's a good game, is it worth going back to this system to play? I think that's the thing you have to ask is, like, is this something that you would tell modern gamers to drop the games they're playing now to go and play this game? Like, this is a must play, and that's a good criteria. And like, me looking at this list, like, it's a solid list, but I definitely think you guys can narrow it down a little bit. Anyway, what was the Star Fox Assault?
I'd say
Yes
no.
or no's? Okay, Riley.
I'm looking at it in regards to not necessarily if something else is there it means it's automatically better. I want some multiplayer representation though.
Yeah, and there's lots of multiplayer games still here, so I'm just looking for a vote so I can tier these games. So yes or no?
I think it should still be here.
Super Mario Sunshine, yes or no?
I'd say no.
I also say no, considering that it was just remade on the Switch. Are we considering the remakes, or are we just considering future titles that have been made that may or may not be better or surpass the game?
I think when you're considering the remakes, like the ports like that, if it's not like a remake in the vein of, like, let's say Final Fantasy VII remake, where it's literally a different game, if you're just considering like a port, you just see it as an alternative way for this person to play the game should you recommend it. Like, I don't think it should be a deterrent from the game.
Okay.
Does Wind Waker HD fall into that?
Yes,
Would you say? All right.
it's the same game. It's not fundamentally different.
So it's still iconic to the GameCube, although you can play it on another console. Okay, then I would say yes for Super Mario Sunshine.
Okay. So 1 no, 1 yes. Riley and Adriano. Mario Sunshine?
Yes.
I say yes too.
Okay. Thank you. Wind Waker, yes or no?
Yes.
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 Mm,
We got
well, it doesn't matter. I'd say yes, I guess. Yeah.
So Wind Waker is a definitive on our list then?
Oh.
No. That's not how it's working.
No.
right now. No,
Jules
we're
is,
not
like,
putting anything on
seeding
the list. I'm just
right now.
seeding them right now, just to help.
Okay, it is the first
okay.
one that we have 4 yeses on, though. We'll take that into account.
Yeah, I know. We are, but I'm just seeding it right now. So Super Smash Bros. Melee.
Yes.
No.
No.
Luigi's Mansion.
Nope.
No.
Yes.
I would say yes.
So, sorry, was that 2 yeses, 2 nos?
Yes.
That is correct.
Great. Super Mario Strikers.
Nope.
Yes.
No.
No. Oh, no, that one's hard actually for me. If we're comparing all the Mario games together, I would say no, but if we're oh man, that's hard. I love
We're not comparing the Mario games though right now.
Yeah,
No,
we're
I
just
know,
saying
I
yes or
know.
no.
Right now we're just doing a yes and no.
We're saying realistically, do you see this being on the final list?
I do.
Okay, Pokemon Colosseum.
Yes.
Yes.
No.
I gotta say no, I think.
Really?
Yeah.
It's such a unique Pokemon game.
XD exists though.
Yeah, but it's like you pick up the second book. Do you pick up Lord of the Rings: The Two Towers, or do you pick up the Fellowship of the Ring
I'm
first?
saying that there are other experiences that are similar. Maybe it's a sequel.
No, this is a very unique game, a Pokemon experience.
Metroid Prime.
Yes.
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 No.
Paper Mario Thousand Year Door.
Yes.
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 Nah.
And F-Zero GX.
Yes.
No.
No.
Yes.
So we have 5 tiers here. Okay.
Oh my lord.
So just to reiterate to you what these tiers are, and we have to start making some deliberations, as hard as it may be for some of you to let go. So the bottom ones that there was only one advocate for was Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes, Smash Bros. Melee, and Star Fox Assault. We can break down why that is, and people can share their thoughts in a sec. 2 out of 4 were Luigi's Mansion, Super Mario Strikers, Pokemon Colosseum, and F-Zero GX. And then you had 3 out of 4 for Super Mario Sunshine, Metroid Prime, Paper Mario: The Thousand Year Door, and then you had all of you said Wind Waker. Okay, well let's talk about the ones at the bottom tier. So I think Sarah made a very good point about Super Smash Bros. Melee. That's something that is there for consideration, Riley, which is that we are recommending people to go back and play these games. And like I know Melee is very unique in the sense that it has a very high skill ceiling in terms of competitive gameplay, but ultimately most people who go back and play are probably not going to play in that way and likely have had an experience with a Smash Bros game. So what do you feel Melee offers that's unique enough or special enough that a person now who maybe has had an experience with Smash Bros. Melee, or has not had, or has had an experience with Smash Bros., or maybe has not had an experience with Smash Bros. Why should they go back and play that one specifically?
I honestly think, this might sound crazy to people. I think a Smash Bros. Game benefits from having a smaller roster than a ridiculously large one. There's more focus on individual character balance, and you don't have to worry about so many counters to what you play. You can just play generally.
I would agree with you had Melee been a balanced game. And I agree philosophically with you that a smaller roster allows for more balance. Unfortunately, that is not the case with Super Smash Bros. Melee, in my personal opinion. But
I see. I think you're going by competitive players. Like
fair.
at that level, everyone plays 4 characters. But if you're not at that level, everything is actually viable.
Okay.
Yeah. But I feel like that's the case with any Smash Bros. Game. But like, I think I'm of the belief that, and I this is probably very unpopular, at least just because of Brawl mucks with things. But like, I believe every Smash Bros. Game, I think Smash Bros. Like a series is very reminiscent to Mario Kart and Animal Crossing and some other Nintendo series, where like every installment gets better in my opinion, to be honest with you. And like, I don't have the motivation to go back and play Melee because a lot of my favorite characters aren't even in that game. Yes, there's the adventure mode there, but like adventure mode, when you look at it, isn't really that ambitious because it was one-upped by Subspace, in my opinion. It offers the same experience over and over again. Yeah, there's a few like small things you can change here and there with adventure mode, but like when people play Smash Bros, they rarely play it by themselves. So that's why like the one unique thing that Melee has, I'm not even really considering it, to be honest with you. So like, but in terms of the gameplay though, like most people are probably going to like pick it up and play it casually, whatever. The balance of the game doesn't matter. So that's what Melee has in favor of it. But at the same time, like, I'm the type of guy where the more options I have, the more I appreciate it. And the fact that there's like 80 plus characters in Ultimate, that's way more appealing to me than a smaller roster like Melee that has clones in it. Melee at this point, in my opinion, it's pretty niche because like if you're so dedicated to the way the game plays, you'd be attracted to Melee, but most people don't care about that. So like any Smash Bros game after it, I would think would be more appealing. So
I also think it's important to remember that we're not picking the best GameCube games. We're not saying these are the 5 best games. We're saying that these are games that if you're going to go back and play GameCube games, here's 5 that you shouldn't miss out on that offer something different from what you are playing now. And I think there is merit in speaking about a game like Smash Bros. That is still around and hasn't changed that much, really, like other than increasing content. And like Melee, like I think offers some value, but like does it offer enough to basically say that if you are only going to play 5 games on GameCube, if I gave you GameCube right now with 5 games and I said these are the must play games, is that worth somebody's time if they've likely already played a Smash Bros game and maybe one of the later ones?
I'm going to be honest, I think Melee feels a lot different than the other ones. I feel like all the other ones kind of built on Brawl. Like
They did.
to me, Ultimate feels about the like, I know it's a little bit faster, it feels very similar to Smash 4 to me.
It is. Fundamentally, they're built off of Brawl, but if you remove engine and you don't talk about engine, they are very much at the end of the day the same game. They do play the same, and really all of them are built off of Melee, because as much as like Smash 4 directly built off of Brawl and Ultimate directly built off of Smash 4, and the only real big change was between Smash Melee and Brawl. Brawl was still built to emulate the way that Melee functioned. And so, like, if I'm going back to play Melee with you, I'm likely going to play it in a very similar fashion to the way I'm playing Smash Ultimate now, albeit some small things. Like I might do some different techniques or I might pick a different character, but like is the core gameplay at the fundamental core gameplay different enough, or does it offer a unique enough experience that there's a reason to go back and play Melee beyond just if you're a competitive and you're in the competitive scene?
And I personally think that my alignment kind of lies more with like Riley. On my personal opinion, I do think that it benefits more from like a smaller roster. But I think Matteo comes up with some really good points though. And I think that that would probably be more of the general consensus. And when I picture, recommending the GameCube to somebody, I don't think of somebody from my generation where we grew up playing these type of games. I think of maybe like a 13-year-old who has a Switch, right? And I think that the newer Smash would appeal more to that generation than it would to me as somebody who grew up playing Melee.
Okay, you know what? I'll concede this one. I see your points. That's fine. We can take off Melee.
I think Melee has a place in a discussion around the greatest GameCube games, but I think in terms of, again, like in terms of the definition of this specific type of discussion, I think that there's a pretty quantifiable reason why Melee is something that's very difficult to argue for. That being said, let's move forward. Now, I don't want Riley to feel like we're just attacking him, so we're not going to look at the other two at the bottom right now.
I would like to say, for the reasons we just said, you shouldn't put Melee on this list. Those are the exact reasons why MGS should be on the list, because it offers something the other ones can't. Because it's the only place you can play it, and it is most people would say it's a vast improvement over MGS1. It's actually hard to go back and play MGS1, whereas this one is not.
That's something to consider. So I don't know if there's another game that anybody wants to bring up, but why don't we look at the second tier of games before we go back down to Riley's games, because I feel bad going Riley after Riley. So we'll go to the second tier of games, which is Luigi's Mansion, Super Mario Strikers, Pokemon Colosseum, F-Zero GX. Anybody have any strong opinions for or against why one should absolutely stay or absolutely be on this list, or why one should probably be axed?
When you look at this tier of these 4 games, 3 of the games are, at least I would consider them best in the series, being Luigi's Mansion, Mario Strikers, and F-Zero GX. And then you have a very unique Pokemon game that hasn't really been done aside from Pokemon XD. I do personally consider Pokemon XD to be the better game between it and Colosseum. If we only had to pick one multiplayer game to come out of here, like definitive multiplayer game for GameCube, I would pick Mario Strikers. And then Luigi's Mansion is another really unique type of game because like you can choose to have the type of experience you want with that game. You can rush through it. You can take your time. The theming of that game is phenomenal. The atmosphere, like there was nothing like Luigi's Mansion, at least from Nintendo, before that game came out. And I don't think the other 2 games have necessarily been able to capture the same atmosphere and feeling that the first game had. Because the newer Luigi's Mansions are.
I feel like Mario games.
It even feels like the color palette's even way off. Like I miss like the
it doesn't try to be
grittier.
like it's not a blend of like horror, like a light, like comedic horror, but a horror nonetheless. It's not trying to emulate that, like a spooky like setting. The new ones are very much like Mario games. Like here's catching ghosts in a bunch of different environments.
Yeah, Luigi's Mansion's extremely unique. I really love that game, and I would argue that would stay. And like, I feel like, is it okay if I pull another game in comparison from a different tier? Because I feel like if we keep Pokemon Colosseum, I think it's going to come up against Thousand Year Door as a comparison.
I vote to drop Colosseum then. Because, I mean, there are many Pokemon games, I suppose. Yes, it is very, very unique. But, I mean, there is only one F-Zero game. I would rather have F-Zero on there than Colosseum.
I was going to bring up, like, with Pokemon Colosseum to you guys as well. Like, I'm trying not to contribute, but I end up doing it because I'm bad at mediating.
Difficult.
And being
No, it's
very difficult.
Confusion.
So all I was gonna say about Colosseum is like I agree. Like Colosseum and XD are 2 of my favorite games on GameCube, and it is very unique in terms of what it does with Pokemon. But in terms of if you look at the actual like all overall gaming, at the end of the day, it is just core Pokemon gameplay with a spin. So it's not actually fundamentally that different. It's just like taking the core Pokemon game, which you find other places, and adding a spin to it. And when you look at like Pokemon as a series, if you were to quantify Pokemon Colosseum in comparison to like the ones like on the Game Boy and like the DS and stuff, like where does it land there? And that's where I would probably falter a little bit and be like, I probably wouldn't tell people to play Pokemon Colosseum over like another Pokemon game, because it like does what it does well, but like ultimately like it is a very bare bones like Pokemon experience that pads that with having a unique concept behind it, like stealing Pokemon, which is something you've never done before. But had you never played a Pokemon game, you wouldn't be able to appreciate those differences. Like that only exists because you have a Pokemon experience. And even having played a Pokemon experience, you know that something like Pokemon Colosseum or XD are a little bit of a watered down experience, even though they're very good in their own right.
And another thing, like we talked about in our various Pokemon discussions we've had up to this point, is that like both of the GameCube Pokemon games were Gen 3 games, and the core gameplay of Pokemon's changed a lot, and there's been a lot of quality of life improvements and like deepening of the battle system since Generation 3. And I think that also, like, to go back might be a little bit weird to be like, okay, well, the special attack split hadn't happened. I'm used to having like a big thing like Mega Evolution or Z moves or Dynamax, something like that,
Yeah.
and like that's not there, right? So it's, and also we've more than doubled the amount of Pokemon since then also, so like
Well,
it's
all the Pokemon weren't in the game too. That's the thing to remember, is like you only access the Pokemon if you link
Yeah.
the Game Boy ones. Like the actual ones that were featured in the main game was only like under 100. But the one thing that I did appreciate about it was the focus around the double battle system, because double battles are actually really fun, and it's not something that's often utilized in the main game. So like using that as a core in Colosseum was smart. I feel like we've talked Colosseum up enough to say like this is a really good game, but unfortunately we
all
might
of these
have to
games
act.
are. All the games on the
Yeah.
short list are.
Yeah. Every
Okay,
game
well-
here is amazing.
So I guess we'll axe Pokemon Colosseum. I think that's what we had agreed. Yeah, am I
I
wrong?
agree.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, in that case, we now have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 games. So you got to eliminate 4 more. So again, we can go to eliminating, or we can go to deciding something that should be there. Why don't we try? Why don't we do that? Why don't we try to add one to the final list for sure? So just looking at the top 2, well, the top seed, because Wind Waker actually isn't above the other ones. But looking at that top seed of 4 games, I'm sure there's got to be at least one game there that all of you can agree can go on this list. Because realistically, at least one of those games is ending up on this list.
Yeah.
Thousand Year Door.
F-Zero. Wait, what?
That's not the
Well, we're looking
Oh, the 3 and
looking
4.
top
Oh,
seed.
okay. Yeah, Thousand Year Door.
I would say Thousand Year Door as well.
I'd say Metroid Prime.
I would agree with Metroid
I
Prime
would
too.
say all of these except Mario Sunshine, to be honest with you. But that's
Okay, well, why don't we do this? Okay, so Thousand Year Door. Right now we have 3 yeses, and we have Riley who said Metroid Prime instead. But Riley, would you disagree with Thousand Year Door?
I guess not.
Okay. And how about Metroid Prime? So we have 2 from Riley and Sarah. Adriano and Matteo, how would you feel about Metroid Prime going on?
absolutely, honestly, like Metroid Prime is the big IP that came out of the GameCube. There hadn't been a Metroid game since Super Metroid, right? And this completely, like, it brought Metroid, like, 'cause Metroid missed the N64 generation. So this was Samus's first time in 3D, and like this game was like super critically acclaimed when it came out, and like the amount of exploration and the atmosphere of the game, like people, I remember reading interviews and people talking about what it was like when that game came out. The transition from Super Metroid to Metroid Prime was seamless. They were able to copy all the main things in the Metroid series that's known for into 3D so seamlessly. Prime is what Mario 64 was to Mario and what Ocarina of Time was to Zelda. So it's super important. It's a landmark game for Nintendo, honestly, if I had to say. I think also it is the best in its series. Not necessarily the Metroid series, but the Metroid Prime series. It's definitely the best Metroid Prime game in my opinion as well. So, in my opinion, I think Prime definitely has a shot in the top 5 for sure.
Well, we're just waiting on Adriano. What do you think, Adriano?
You know, I haven't actually played Metroid Prime, but if it's 3 out of 4, then let's keep it.
So then we're gonna say I'm gonna remove them from the list here because they've gone on to the final list, which are Metroid Prime and Thousand Year Door. Now we're down to 1, 2, 7 games that you need to pick 3 from.
Can we talk about Wind Waker now?
We can, or else I was gonna go back down to the bottom and see if we can again like whittle down.
Okay, we can go back down to the bottom if y'all want. Because if we have almost half of the list compiled at this
Can I
point.
just submit something?
Let's go.
Okay. I honestly, when we were coming into this, I thought the list was going to be the 2 that we have on there, Mario Sunshine, Wind Waker, and then I was hoping we'd do Twin Snakes just so it's not all Nintendo stuff all the time.
Right.
Okay.
And I think maybe, like, I don't think there's anything wrong with any of those games. I think that maybe it comes down to just the group that you're in, honestly, and just our personal preferences and honestly what we've played. So I think that your opinion on those games holds stronger than some of the opinions on the other games because, like, I don't know if all of us have played those.
Yeah.
So I think that you should definitely talk them up because, yeah, I would like to hear.
It's hard to talk about why Metal Gear Solid is so good if you haven't played Metal Gear Solid, because
Right.
Well,
I understand
you can
though
still
the
talk
appeal of
about
Metal
it.
Gear. I've never played it, but
I've
like
seen
seen it too. It
gameplay.
looks really
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
it's not. It's the gameplay of Metal Gear isn't the selling point. It's honestly the story and the
yeah.
40 hours of dialogue.
And considering on GameCube too, I'll add to that. Like GameCube doesn't have a lot of those cinematic experiences because Nintendo games aren't heavy on the cinematic
That's true.
experiences. So Metal Gear Solid is, in a way, the Twin Snakes is one of those games that's like, well, not only is it exclusive to GameCube, and not only is it a remake of one of the most critically acclaimed games on PS1 and a better version of it at that, but it also offers something that isn't really typical of a Nintendo series. Clearly
Right.
enough to get Snake into Smash Bros.
Right, which I think has its own, strength in this conversation for sure. Because if you are playing a Nintendo console and you want something unique, then you're probably going to go for something more like Metal Gear Solid, not, Super Mario Sunshine, which is unique in itself, but it's not a unique comparatively to other Nintendo games. It kind of has the same ambiance.
I think most Nintendo games, well, other than Metroid, I think share that sort of ambiance, really.
Right, and I agree with that too.
Well, why don't we talk about Star Fox Assault? Are we feeling like it's realistically going to be one of the 3 of these games that's going to make it there? Should it be one of the 3 of these games that's going to make it there? What do we think?
Maybe we should talk about multiplayers then, if we're going to be like picking out now that we've got it like narrowed down.
True. Well,
Yeah.
okay, yeah, that's true because what we have right now is we have 2 single player games, and the remainder of these games is mostly single player. So the only multiplayer experiences you have here are Star Fox Assault, F-Zero GX, and Mario Strikers.
I think Star Fox Assault is the strongest multiplayer one there, personally.
I would argue Strikers, but that also is just my experience, right?
I've played all these games and I don't see how Star Fox Assault can hold a candle against basically any of these games on the list.
Well, it depends on your on your experience and desire to play sports games. Some people despise sports games. Star Fox
Mario
Assault is
Strikers
closer
isn't a
to-
sports game, really. Like it, okay, I wouldn't call it a sports game. It's so like, yes, it's soccer at its core, but like it's not like FIFA. It's
Okay, but it's still, the idea is you kick ball, you want it go in net. Where Star Fox Assault is, I'd say
it's
the
shooting
closest you
though. It's shooting. It's like the same. You can generalize.
It's the closest you can get to a GoldenEye sort of experience on N60 or on GameCube.
Well, there's time
Definitely
splitters,
Island.
but it's not.
Oh,
We can't
right,
say
there
time
is
splitters. But time splitters is exclusive. Isn't exclusive, but
Yeah. Well, here's something I can offer to you guys just to consider, just as another thing, is we already know Metroid Prime is on the list. Metal Gear Solid, the Twin Snakes could be. Riley's arguing hard for it. And then Star Fox Assault, while we're considering it in a multiplayer aspect, we also have to consider it as a holistic package, which is also main campaign. Now, I know it's a different kind of shooter, but ultimately, if all 3 of those games were to make it on the list, you would have 3 shooting games on the list. So just
Yeah.
something to consider. That there are shooters, and like I know they're very different types of shooters. I know Twin Snakes is a stealth shooter. I know Metroid Prime is a first person shooter, and I know
very hard to call it a shooter.
but the core combat mechanic is I press button to shoot bullet at bad guy.
But the core mechanic is you're not supposed to shoot people except in certain
Yes, in Twin
situations.
Snakes, sure.
In
Just
most
something to
Metal Gear
consider.
games.
Just something to
Just
consider.
because you play the Metal Gear games like shooters doesn't mean that that's how they're
I,
supposed to play. That's
I
just
know.
an option you have.
I'm just saying to consider that as the genre is similar, just as a consideration.
I would just like once again like Mario Strikers. It did a lot for the Mario series is like the character development. Honestly, I don't remember Waluigi being a meme before Mario Strikers. That game, when it came out of nowhere almost. And like the multiplayer of that game, that's the core of the game. There isn't anything else besides that. You can have and like build your own tournaments in it as well. Like my friends and I, when the game came out, we would do Mario Strikers tournaments like weekly. We put so much time into that game and like we never got sick, and I think that says a lot. You can turn all the stuff that's gimmicky off and still it's like Smash Bros, honestly, like turning items off of Smash Bros and Mario Strikers, it's the same thing. And even like the only gimmicky thing that would be in there if you want to keep it is Super Strikes, and even that is really difficult to pull off. Of the Mario sports games and the Mario multiplayer games, and there's a lot of them on GameCube. I don't think there's ever been more Mario sports or kart whatever on anything else than there was on GameCube. Mario Strikers is the most unique out of any of those games, and it's held up the best out of any of those games, to be honest with you. Like, it's Mario with attitude, and I think that's just so appealing. Mario gets criticized all the time for being so happy-go-lucky and like innocent in a way, and then you have Strikers and like they literally kicking the crap out of each other in that game. It's so fun seeing Donkey Kong just smash Yoshi into the electric fence. Like it's hilarious.
As if Smash Bros doesn't exist.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think talking about like the value of revisiting the GameCube, I think most party games right now, if you have a Nintendo system, involve Mario Party and Smash Bros. And I would be so excited if somebody whipped out Super Mario Strikers. I think it's extremely unique to the GameCube, and the replay value of it is amazing. I would be absolutely thrilled. And I think that most people would find that it is unique to a lot of other games that offer a similar experience.
In Mario Party, the mini games that get chosen for you to play are random, and some of those experiences can be, they won't be that fun. But in Mario Strikers, you have complete control over the experience you want to play in that game. And I think that's pretty important, to be honest with you, because you know how you want to spend your time when you play that game. And the value that game presents, like the gameplay loop is, like I said, over and over again, it's addictive. Like, and I think that is super important, especially for multiplayer games, for you wanting to come back. And Strikers basically is dead since Wii, and the Wii version isn't as great in my opinion. So like we're probably not gonna, like, as sad as it is to say, that there isn't another experience like Mario Strikers elsewhere, to be honest with you. So I really think when you consider that and the fact that it's a sports game but doesn't feel like a sports game is...
Yeah, I don't like sports games. I love it though.
Star Fox Assault, yes, it's unique because in modern Star Fox games, at least, they don't really approach the ground combat, I think, at all anymore, right? Like, Star Fox Zero didn't have that type of game mode at all. So, like, whenever I played Star Fox Assault, I just didn't feel, like, I didn't feel anything that I haven't felt before when I played a game. There's a lot of games like Star Fox Assaults, like, in terms of, like, the shooting and, like, on the ground combat and stuff. And then, honestly, the space combat that isn't multiplayer in Star Fox Assault is better in Star Fox 64. So it's the game isn't the series at its best, in my opinion.
That's a fair point. Adrian, do you have anything to say?
About Assault versus Strikers?
Or even F-Zero GX, just the multiplayers that we have up right now.
Again, I haven't played F-Zero GX, but I've heard extremely good things about it.
Yeah.
I would choose out of those three Strikers.
And like F-Zero GX isn't known for multiplayer. Like, that's not the main selling point of that game. The main selling point of that game is the single player. It's like Dark Souls, but a racing game. Like, it's really like tough as nails. You need to master the tracks in order to progress in the higher difficulties, and even in the story mode. After a certain point, the story mode gets really, really tough, and like the game wants you to go through Grand Prix a lot, master your character and the way your vehicle moves Would you want to prioritize the health of your vehicle or how fast it travels? Like there's a lot of things to consider with like that in F-Zero. That's pretty unique for a racing game, I would think. But I think multiplayer wise, there isn't much there for F-Zero that's notable. But like I said, I don't consider it a multiplayer game. Like,
Okay. Well, why don't we? Because I think we need to, in sake of time, make some decisions.
yeah,
So, how are we feeling about Mario Strikers versus Star Fox Assault? It sounds like generally people are pushing more toward Mario Strikers.
I would vote for Strikers personally,
Strikers.
but I do enjoy Star Fox Assault. They're both good games. I guess we're not calling any of these games bad. We're just picking
No, we're
essentials.
not.
Yeah.
I would pick Strikers as essential over Assault. I think that Matteo made some really good points, as you could get that experience elsewhere. And Strikers is really just genuine to the
GameCube, yeah.
But how different is it from the Wii one?
Quite different, fundamentally.
The Wii one added needless layers to the game, and it, I think, ruined the core of the game.
Imagine like the GameCube Mario parties versus the N64 Mario parties, Riley. Like the amount of changes was so overwhelmingly.
So like Melee to Brawl?
play the Wii one.
No, like I don't. Not like Melee to Brawl, like the Mario parties, like where the core, the way you play the game has to change because they added so much needless stuff. Like Melee to Brawl, you don't play the game differently. Like, sure, it functions a little differently and the engine's bad, but like you still play it fundamentally the same. It's like Mario Party 5 and 6, like the way that it's played is very different than Mario Party 1, 2, 3 because they altered the like the core like ingredients, right? And that's kind of what Strikers Charge does to Strikers, is it adds so much needless stuff that you're not even really playing the same game. You're playing like the core gameplay, but with a bunch of like crazy stuff that's like really intrusive.
It's so easy to score in Mario Strikers Charged. It isn't even funny. Like,
Yeah.
I didn't even know
it's-
there was a Wii one until now.
Yeah.
Yeah. Riley, how are you feeling about Star Fox Assault potentially being removed?
I concede.
Then let's go back up to, again, we'll leave Twin Snakes at the bottom and move back into the second tier. So F-Zero GX, Super Mario Strikers, Luigi's Mansion. How are we feeling about these games making it onto the list? Because ultimately, like, we have to pick 3. We have 6 games here. So realistically, as few as one of these games is making it onto the list. So there has to be some deliberation now of like which of these games can go, which ones aren't cut out for this list. Or
I think for the sake of list diversity, like there's only one multiplayer game on our list, Mario Strikers. I think it's just so GameCube. It's so like early 2000s. I think I think at least it should stave. At least for me, like if I had to seed these 3 games, I would put Strikers on the top.
as a multiplayer experience.
For roster diversity, for the sake of building our 5 games, it also has that over any game on this list because it.
I don't know about that one.
Well, in the sense that I think he's saying
You
like it's a
can't say there's
multiplayer party game.
multiplayer in Twin Snakes or in Wind
Okay, no.
Waker or in Mario Sunshine because there isn't.
I think that's what
Okay,
he's
but I
saying.
think in terms of accessibility, what we have to assume that maybe these people don't have friends.
That's kind of a valid point too.
But the thing
True.
is, multiplayer is part of the foundation of the GameCube.
But also remember when I said accessibility, the definition of accessibility was more toward like, can you find the game?
True.
Like, are you able to play it? Not so much.
It's
like
probably
in
the
that
cheapest
regard,
game
right?
on this list, I think, aside from Luigi's Mansion. But in terms of price, not like quality of the game, but
Right.
I think we kind of need to make a decision without talking about it more. But
yeah.
the last thing I kind of want to give my 2 cents about it is just like Mario Party was such an essential like part of the multiplayer of N64. I do think, especially we're talking about a Nintendo system, we're talking about Nintendo games. I do think a game like Mario Strikers was significant. When I grew up as a kid, my group of friends, my school, were Nintendo gamers. They weren't PlayStation. They weren't like, and everybody had Strikers and everybody played Strikers, and it was one of those communal games. And it's one of those games that people still, on the occasion, will pick up and go play because they'll be like, "Hey, like I want to play Strikers, and where do you play it? You play it on the GameCube." And I don't think there's a lot of games you can say that about, where like you actually like if you want to play it, that play that multiplayer game with your friends, that you say, "Hey, let's pull out the GameCube to play specifically for this game," you know. Of course, like I still do that for Mario Party, but I'm always playing all of the Mario parties. Like
Until
it's not the
MCC
same with
came out,
Strike.
you did that with Halo.
Sure, but we're talking about GameCube, not
That's true.
Xbox,
But I'm
right?
saying
Like I think.
there are other games like that.
Yeah, no, I know there's other games. I'm saying for GameCube specifically, like how many games do we pull out the GameCube to play? Specifically
I
that
actually
game.
bring GameCubes around sometimes to play Melee. Or
I
use
know
them.
you do. But I'm saying in the context of Riley, like when you come over and we say let's play Smash, we play Ultimate, right? And that's what I'm saying is like it's not the same. I know, but it's not the same as like somebody who's like let's play Strikers and they have to pull out the GameCube or like they have to go back to the GameCube because that's the game to play. Like that's the only way to play it, unless you're playing the Wii one, but most people aren't unless you're Joe. GameCube had less of a defined one than N64, but like when we talked about the N64 essentials, we were all like from the beginning, there has to be a Mario Party on this list because Mario Party is such an important part of the communal aspect of N64. And I think Mario Strikers, while it might not be the one that everybody would say, some people might say Mario Kart and some people might say Smash, it represents that same thing. That
It
same
represents multiplayer games.
yeah, it
Like,
represents that communal, like, I'm going to go play my GameCube to play this game. I'm going to pull out my GameCube to play Mario Strikers, just like I'm going to pull out my N64 to play Mario Party 2.
Mm.
Because this is a game that's, like, worth setting up an old system to play.
That's a great point, and that actually can be applied to some of these other ones here. And I'll argue that later. But I definitely agree with that. And I definitely do think that Super Mario Strikers should be on our list. Should we compress the list together and just start comparing them all? Because 6 is kind of a small number now. And I think that Luigi's Mansion can be comparable to Super Mario Sunshine.
Yeah, well, I think if
Absolutely.
we take one off, if it's going to be Mario Strikers and we take one off, then I think at the next step is to compress the final 5 and decide 2.
Well, I would say the Super Mario Strikers belongs in our top 5, personally. If we're going to put a multiplayer up there, which I think when talking GameCube, you have to, that would be the one that I would pick out of the list.
So how are we feeling then?
Given the games that we still have here, I don't think it's fair to like. It's not like we shouldn't conclude that we need a multiplayer game on there.
I mean, GameCube was a very fundamentally a multiplayer system, right?
like the multiplayer is arguably the biggest deal on like the best grouping of multiplayer games Nintendo or and like that have ever been assembled on a Nintendo platform. I think have been on GameCube, and I think to not reference that at all and only put single player games on our list, I think it's doing a disservice to the system. To be honest with you,
I agree. I think like in
I think we
to
already took
me
out the quintessential multiplayer game that people played on GameCube.
sure, but that's what I was about to say is like I think like we all have our preferences of which game that should be. Some of us it's Mario Kart, for some of us it's Mario Strikers, for some of us it's Melee. But at the end of the day, all of us understand that GameCube for all of us was a communal experience and we all had a lot of fun playing those games with our friends. So this is the one that we have here, and I think it's less about voting for this particular game and more about voting for I understand that a lot of people like this game and a lot of people played it together, and that experience deserves to be represented on this list, whether it's the game you personally liked or played or not,
But
right?
see, that's going. I thought that's going like because that's not necessarily an experience someone new can replicate. It's not because it's going to be hard to find that communal sense with the game that they pick up now.
They can because they can play it with friends.
Yeah, but that doesn't necessarily. It's not going to have the same sort of impact that it did when it was current.
Maybe not, but does that mean it's not worth playing?
I mean, if the whole strength of it is having this huge communal aspect to
It's
it.
not. It's
you only
that's not
need
the
one
whole
other
strength.
person, right? It's
Yeah. It's important to consider.
It's one of those games where I played and was completely not wowed by, despite hearing great things from my friends. So it's hard for me to endorse it as completely.
But to be fair, like I know it's hard for you to endorse it, Riley, but also take it from this like perspective. Super Mario Strikers and Mario Sports games aren't your typical kind of game. And like you are
I
inherently
love
not
Mario Tennis, so I
sure, and that might be an exception, but like I know you and I know your style of game. Like those aren't your type of games, but the people here are very passionate that yes, this game deserves to be here. And so I think it's important to also remember that like while you might not personally believe that this game deserves to be there, like there are a lot of people here who do like very passionately believe that this game does have a place there and they like this type of game, right? And they're recognizing it. Like it's like for me, I don't play shooters, but regardless of my personal experience with shooters, I would probably live and die by your recommendations on shooters because I trust your opinion as an experienced shooter player who has really good taste in that. So in the same way, like Adriano, Sarah, and Matteo are very like into like Nintendo party games, and so I think it's fair to like be like I don't agree with this because I don't like these games, but I trust these people's opinions because they have a lot of experience with these types of games and they're still, saying it's one of the best.
Yeah, even if you don't enjoy Strikers itself, I think that it's important to have some sort of multiplayer on the list. Because honestly, when I think of GameCube, I actually don't think of a specific game. I think of my brother, and I think of the times that me and my brother played our GameCube together. And I think that ruling out a multiplayer would, do the console a little bit of a disservice.
Well, the thing is, and I know this is going to bite me in the ass later on, but once again, like when we've assembled our definitive lists in the past, we never needed a unanimous consensus. Not all the people needed to agree; it just needed a majority. So,
Ocarina of Time Majora's Mask.
well,
Yeah, true.
it's if we want to be faithful to the precedent that we set, going all the way back to the NES, then like if 3 of the 4 people agree.
I'm gonna say just as the mediator, like because I think that's the point of us having a mediator here was for me to try and quantify. I'm not gonna say it's because 3 out of the 4 people said yes. I'm gonna say it's because 3 out of the 4 people are passionately saying yes. Like they're very adamant that the multiplayer experience needs to be represented and that this is the game that represents it. And so I'm not trying to like invalidate your opinion, Riley. I think you're valid in your opinions and what you're saying, but I think if I'm going to have to mediate this and it is a 3-1 and it's not a 3-1 where it's like, I don't know. I don't feel like this needs any more discussion. Like I feel like at this point, it's just a decision has to be made. And I think enough point has been made for it that it warrants it being put onto the list.
Okay.
So I'm going to just make that call. Okay. So we have the 5 left that we're just going to kind of put together. And we have to pick 2 of these, which are Super Mario Sunshine, Wind Waker, Luigi's Mansion, F-Zero GX, and Twin Snakes. So we have to deliberate further to go from here. So I think the best thing to do would probably be to talk about, I think, the 2 Mario games that are on this list.
I agree with that.
And I'm not saying that one has to go, but I think the first question you should ask is, should the last 2 spots go to Super Mario Sunshine and Luigi's Mansion?
Yeah, and I don't think that it should. And I think that actually both of the games are pretty comparable to each other. I think that we can look at them. I mean, story-wise, atmosphere-wise, they're extremely different, but you can break them down to just fundamental gameplay as pretty similar.
The way I would look at it is, at least starting with Mario Sunshine, I personally don't like Mario Sunshine, but I'm not going to, like, that's not going to be anything to do with this. We already have 2 Mario games on the list in Strikers and Paper Mario. Does anyone here consider Sunshine to be the best Mario game when you compare it to the rest of the games in its series? Like, is Super Mario Sunshine, can you honestly say, is it the best 3D Mario game?
I think it's
No.
the second best.
I think Odyssey is the best.
I think.
Well, it doesn't matter what you think is the best. The matter
Yeah,
is,
what would you say it
do you
is?
think Sunshine is the best? And
I
I
would
think
say that compared to Luigi's Mansion and Super Mario Sunshine, I prefer Luigi's Mansion.
I think it's the most unique of the 3D Mario games by a long shot.
I agree with that too. And I really enjoy it, but I enjoy
Yeah.
Luigi's Mansion better. If we were talking about just because I think that Super Mario Sunshine is more comparable to the other 3D Mario games. I think that you can look at, even Odyssey and Galaxy and 64 and compare Sunshine with them, but I think Luigi's Mansion's in a totally different playing field.
I think it's a very different game. I haven't played it though, but it looks to me, in like the mechanical wise, looks like a
You
very
have to
different
play
game.
Luigi's Mansion.
I have to. I know.
Yeah, you really do. It would be in my top 5, and I would honestly put it over some of the ones that we have in top 5, which I'm not saying to remove any of them, of course, but I would say I'm that passionate about Luigi's Mansion being one of the most fundamental GameCube games and being exclusively GameCube to the point where even its remakes don't compare to it. Not its remakes, I'm sorry, its sequels don't compare to it.
Yeah. Well, that's what Luigi's Mansion has over Mario Sunshine, and like that's totally reasonable, Sarah. Like I completely agree with that. So, does anyone have anything else to add about Mario Sunshine or Luigi's Mansion that like could help push the discussion further.
If you'd like my opinion, I kind of agree. I think like I've always been one, like we just did our DS Essentials, and I was very much a push like what's uniquely DS, and I think Luigi's Mansion is uniquely GameCube. Like when I think of GameCube and I think of the games on GameCube, Luigi's Mansion is one of those games.
Me too.
I genuinely think Mario Sunshine is a better game than Luigi's Mansion, personally. And Mario Sunshine is one of my favorite 3D Marios, but I do think that there is a reason to pick Luigi's Mansion over Mario Sunshine just because it is like I think the games are comparable. I think Luigi's Mansion is something that was started in GameCube. It's something that's never been bested. Like they've never been able to emulate the same vibe as the original Luigi's Mansion, even though the gameplay maybe has gotten better, like the vibe has not. Right?
Mm-hmm.
Like it's something like where you look at games like modern games, for example, like you cannot argue like this is like my opinion. A game like, for example, Metroid, in my opinion, it is objective that since Super Metroid, the gameplay has become more refined. But that doesn't mean just because the gameplay became more refined and the ideas maybe became bigger and they tried bigger things, the tone has never been emulated from that original Super Metroid. And so that's the same thing I look at Luigi's Mansion is like, while I think Luigi's Mansion 3, like at its core, gameplay wise, like what's a better game? Sure. Maybe Luigi's Mansion 3 is a better game, but like it just feels like another Mario game. It doesn't feel like Luigi's Mansion. Like Luigi's Mansion 1 is the only game that feels like Luigi's Mansion.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It's good. It actually is, it's kind of creepy. I think that there's no other Mario game that you can say, even the Luigi's Mansions to follow are creepy. And it's comedically creepy, but it's creepy.
And again, like the thing is, we're talking about these two Mario games, not that Luigi's Mansion or Mario Sunshine's going on the list. We're just narrowing
Exactly.
down which one is.
Yeah.
Are we taxing from the short list?
Right.
I think what it comes down to is Mario Sunshine and me, it like I get it. It's okay, all Dolphinos, it's tropical theme and like whatever. Like it's Mario's in a setting he's never been in before or hasn't been in since, but like it still feels like a Mario game. Flood's there to enhance, or I don't think it's enhancing, but like it's to change the way platforming works. Luigi's Mansion, like there's no jumping in that game. That doesn't feel like a Mario game. Like Mario still
Mhm.
does what he does in Sunshine in every other Mario game.
But Luigi's Mansion isn't a Mario game. It's a Luigi's Mansion game, right?
Yes.
Yeah, I know.
Like my question is how
Or-
different from Luigi, because I think Mario Sunshine is very like it's very unique relative to the other 3D Marios. How unique is Luigi's Mansion to the other ones, other than the atmosphere? Like
Sure, you're right. No,
Yeah.
you're not wrong. That is a valid point. I think the big difference being that Luigi's Mansion isn't as storied of a series. So like even though sure you can get those experiences elsewhere, you can't really get them in many places. And never like this version of it. The other thing too is I think you have to compare that Mario Sunshine and Luigi's Mansion. While Mario Sunshine is unique in comparison to Mario games, when you compare it to Luigi's Mansion, they're actually similar in terms of mechanics and in terms of the way that they play. Like the tone obviously is vastly different, but there is a mechanical similarity between the two, and I don't think there's a reason to keep both.
Yeah, I think that's why it's fair to compare them.
I think
No, I
either
think-
of these games can go through, like to be honest, but I also think
yeah, you
either
know
of
what?
them
I'm
could
indifferent
not.
at this point, so what you can just decide amongst yourselves. I think both of them can go on.
Me too. I love them both. Super Mario Sunshine is one of my absolute favorite games. I wouldn't say that if you played the N64 and played Super Mario 64, yeah, Super Mario Sunshine would be an extremely unique experience, where Luigi's Mansion would be an extremely unique experience.
I misspoke. I didn't mean that both of them could go on. I mean either of them could go on.
Yeah, I agree with that. And if we're gonna like narrow it down to a vote now that we all agree that either of them are valid options,
I think that's
I
fair.
would say Luigi's Mansion is
Okay,
where I would like
Yeah.
put my loyalty.
Mateo,
Of the two, I would keep Luigi's Mansion on the list for now. So
Adriano.
So again, has Luigi's Mansion been remade at all, or
There's been
Yes.
sequels, but they're not good.
sequels? Okay,
Yeah,
I
there
would
was
sequels
a 3D
and a remake.
I would keep
Yeah.
Luigi's Mansion because of the recent Switch port of Sunshine. So I would keep Luigi's Mansion.
already talked about that though, being just a different way to recommend something.
I know, but still, like that would be my reason for choosing it. I
Like
know
there
it's not-
is a 3DS version of the GameCube Luigi's
Yeah.
Mansion, but it's not as
Yeah.
good as it is on GameCube, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little bit watered down.
Yeah, so I would choose Luigi's Mansion for that reason.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, okay. So, in which case,
Shine, tears.
Sunshine, farewell.
We'll
See
miss
you later.
you.
Good riddance, Mario
You
Sunshine.
are a good choice.
Wait, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So Sunshine's gone doesn't mean that Luigi's Mansion's going on there for sure.
Yes.
No,
Yeah,
no.
you're right.
Not necessarily.
That's what we said. So now we can continue to talk about things. So I think this is what we need to do. We've heard from Riley about Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. We've heard a spiel. We've heard from Matteo a spiel about F-Zero GX, and we've now talked about Luigi's Mansion in depth. We haven't really talked about Wind Waker. So why don't we do that? Why doesn't somebody kind of like take ownership, talk about it, why it should be on the list, why it shouldn't, things like that.
With like remember when we were making when we made the DS Essentials, the Game Boy Advance Essentials, like all the Essentials list we've done before, and we've talked about whether a Zelda game is good enough to be on the list. Well, GameCube, Wind Waker especially, is good enough. The quality of the game is good enough to be on a GameCube list. And especially since it's been enhanced on Wii U, playing Wind Waker is still pretty accessible. And the Wii U version still isn't like leagues and bounds better than the GameCube one. The GameCube one is still a valuable way to play that game. It's still a quality way to play that game. The game is still fine the way it is. I just think that Wind Waker is one of those like landmark Zelda titles that deserves every bit of praise that it gets, because look at how Wind Waker influenced like a decade's worth of Zelda games. Just its art style alone did that. And like Toon Link is in Super Smash Bros. That's an iconic version of Link. A lot of people, that's their only version of Link, is
Absolutely.
Toon Link. So the way Wind Waker streamlined the combat from Ocarina of Time, like, and added like Link had all like those special attacks and stuff like that, and like I just found like the adventure in Wind Waker was so grand. It's different than Ocarina of Time, but it's a sequel to Ocarina of Time. It's a continuation of like, and I just loved all the callbacks back to Ocarina of Time in it as well. Just like something messed up happened in this world. Why is it flooded? Like there's the mystery of that, and like it's like there's so many seeds that the game plants early on that like it. I just feel like the way the story progresses in Wind Waker and like the scenarios that Link goes through in that game, like you go through the Forsaken Fortress the first time, and like you have to play a Zelda game, but you don't have items, and if you get spotted, you have to like get your way out of the jail again. Like and there were stealth elements there, and like that hadn't been done in a Zelda game like that way before. Like you had the maze and stuff in Ocarina of Time, but like not to that extent. And just like the way that everything was so emotive, and like Link's facial expressions and all of that, like there was just so much character in that game. And I just think like Breath of the Wild, people say Breath of the Wild is a fantastic game, but like it doesn't do that well. Like Wind Waker, I feel like the character building in that game, like Ganondorf is as good as he's ever been in my opinion in Wind Waker. Like you want to feel bad for him. Like after, like I can't say like level design wise, I think all the dungeons in Wind Waker are pretty good. Like it's rare to have a Zelda game where there aren't bad dungeons. And I just think like the only thing you can say about Wind Waker is there's not enough dungeons, but the ones that are there are not bad. The items are really cool. Like it's hard for me to say anything but positive things about like my first GameCube experience. And like Wind Waker for the longest time was my favorite Zelda game until I started replaying Ocarina of Time more. And like I feel like it has to be on here, or at least it has to keep going just for the sake of the list. And like the point I'm at right now, like I would want Wind Waker on the list over like F-Zero GX. And I'm the only one that's really played F-Zero GX, right? It's like that's how important Wind Waker is to GameCube, I think.
Well, that's what I was going to ask is, so here's something just to consider. And the answers will be different for everybody. I know what my answer is. When we talked about N64, we knew from the beginning there was a Zelda game on that list because Zelda was at the heart of the N64. Like the N64 is nothing without Zelda because it was so integral. Now, do we feel that way about GameCube? Do we feel that Zelda, like that if there was not a Zelda game on this list, that it would be less GameCube?
I feel like to what Zelda was to N64, Metroid was to GameCube, honestly.
There were 2 Zelda games as well on the GameCube, and I don't think that the iconic Zelda game for the GameCube was Twilight Princess. I think that is for the Wii, and I think that Wind Waker really does define the GameCube. I think that the GameCube wouldn't feel the same without at least one of the Zelda. There's more, but these are the ones that were like exclusive to GameCube. But yeah, no, Wind Waker, I think, personally, needs to be on that list. And it's not just because I'm biased to Zelda, but Matteo put such a strong argument that I really think that I'm going to replay Wind Waker after this.
Don't do it. They might put out a port.
You're talking about the characterization and everything. It's just taking me right back. And I think that they really send Link down a completely new narrative. Not even literally, but just his character. They present so much in Wind Waker that other Zelda games don't offer, at least until that point. And it's a really, really amazing game. And I think that you can't even talk about Zelda series as a whole without considering Wind Waker. So would definitely put it on the list.
Like Wind Waker's in like that, like the highest tier of Zelda games. Like it's in the company of like the best in the whole series, and it could be argued to be the best in the whole series, right? Twilight Princess, there's more of a, it's more like it could go either way, but like Wind Waker, I don't think can. I think it's just the way that it pushed the series forward. I think it's important, and the thing is, like I said early on in the podcast, feels like an eternity ago, but like I think that the fact that Wind Waker still holds up today in terms of visuals, and like it really holds up if you talk about Wind Waker HD, but like even the base version of Wind Waker, it is still a gorgeous game, and like just aesthetically it's different than every other Zelda game, a 3D Zelda game at least, that's come out ever.
I'd like to add though, because I know Matteo, you said that you would prefer to have, because you nominated Wind Waker and F-Zero GX, and I nominated Luigi's Mansion and also had the intention of nominating Wind Waker. With 2 nominations still on this list. If I had to pick between the 2, I would like Wind Waker to be on that list over Luigi's Mansion.
Right, so like that's the thing. Like, does everyone else feel that way? Because like,
like it sounds like of these 4 games, the one that is probably most confidently, like unanimously, like maybe not unanimously, but collectively accepted to be at least the 4th slot is Wind Waker.
Yeah.
Is what the vibe I'm getting is. So I feel like regardless of what that 5th spot is going to be, it's not going to change the fact that Wind Waker is probably going to fall into this list.
I agree.
So
pragmatic view here.
Yeah.
Okay, so then we're just going to put Wind Waker on. So Wind Waker's there. So we have 3 games left, Luigi's Mansion, F-Zero GX, and Metal Gear Solid Twin Snakes. Now, the interesting thing about this list is that you're not going to, like, you will not come to a unanimous decision.
Of course.
So there is going to need to be some discussion and some negotiation and some
sacrifice
decision on like what's happening here. And I think that ultimately it should be grounded in the arguments that people present. So at this point, like, what are we? So let's look at our list. So right now we have, I'm going to be a bit reductionist. We have 2 Mario games. We have 2 adventure games. We also have, I guess that's it.
Yeah.
2 Mario games, 2
But
2
here's
adventure
the other,
games.
we have 4 Nintendo games.
We also do have 4 Nintendo games. We also have 4 Nintendo games that have other games available now.
Right.
Right? Like Paper Mario, while it's very different, still has games. Like that's the other thing to consider is like, okay, well, like at least for F-Zero and Metal Gear, those are both fundamentally dead series right now. So you're not going to get new games to play in those series. Whereas Luigi's Mansion, who knows, right? We don't know.
You just killed Mateo's hope. Mateo's hoping that F-Zero could get a new game. He hopes that every
Well, no,
year.
this is the thing. Honestly, like, well, at least right now, I think as much as I love Luigi's Mansion, the only thing is like we have Mario games on here already.
The other
It's
thing I
tough.
think that was not posed about Luigi's Mansion, which I didn't want to say before because I didn't want to invalidate anybody's opinion, but I'm going to say now, as the very biased mediator who is completely adding his subjective opinion onto everything and not playing his role in this at all. Luigi's Mansion, while I appreciated your argument, Matteo, of like it has great replayability, I also think that's a highly subjective claim, and ultimately, Luigi's Mansion is just a 3-4 hour experience.
Oh, I
and
agree.
and like for somebody who wasn't super intrigued by the gameplay, like that's all it will ever be. It's just like one short, very short experience, right? So like also considering that.
Although I personally disagree, I definitely see what you mean. And my opinion about the last 3 games kind of just goes down to the list diversity and how it would be probably best to recommend 5 diverse games. And I've played 2 out of 3 of these games. And I'm actually going to go ahead and put my vote towards the game that I haven't played just because I think that Riley had a really good argument for it. And I've seen gameplay of it, and I cannot say that any of the 4 games that we've had on our list look anything like it. So I'm going to go ahead and say that my vote will be Metal Gear Solid just because I would go back and play that. As somebody who has not played it, I think that it looks intriguing enough.
It's also like the other thing to consider about Twin Snakes is like Riley said, it's not like it's just some random game from Metal Gear. Like it is the first Metal Gear Solid game, just like Metroid Prime, right? Like in Luigi's Mansion,
Yeah.
it's the first. So like, and it being a good remake and only on GameCube, like for somebody who wants to get into the franchise, it's probably more accessible, or like not necessarily like physically accessible, but like gameplay wise, like it's more accessible for somebody to play that version of the first game if they're interested in the series than to play the actual original version. So it also has that going for it.
I highly agree with that. In fact, I want to get into the series, and I'm going to start with that. So
You can
I
borrow
think-
my copy.
Oh, well, actually, I'll play it on my emulator, but
Oh, fair enough.
But yeah, I'm gonna totally do that.
Yeah, as much as I love Luigi's Mansion, don't get me wrong, Luigi's Mansion is one of my favorite games ever, 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 ever. But for the sake of list diversity, I think that we do have other games that might offer a kind of similar experience. Not atmospherically, but, you know, it's a goofy Nintendo game, and it's, you know, it's fun. But Metal Gear Solid's probably the best option.
I can live with that because, to be honest, you remember I said earlier in the podcast that I would rather have Kirby Air Ride over F-Zero GX, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So, and like, I'm kind of surprised that other people have vouched for F-Zero. Like, that has legitimately surprised me. Like, I didn't think I gave that compelling of an argument for F-Zero GX, but like, I hear from a lot of people that Metal Gear Solid 1 is like it has a shot, like it can be considered to be the best in the series as well. And this is just the best version of that game. We had all of these rules put in place just in case there's a lot of third-party games, and it'd be kind of stupid if we don't suggest what is probably the best third-party game on the system. So,
Right.
and also there isn't a game like that on this list either. F-Zero, there isn't anything like it either, but I mean, there's probably going to be another Metal Gear game before there's an F-Zero game, so that's another thing. Like, this is probably better homework.
There will be a good F-Zero game before there's a good Metal Gear game.
No, there won't be any F-Zero games. So
Yeah, there won't be any good Metal Gear games. Actually, if they remake MGS1 in the Fox engine, it could be pretty good.
I don't know.
But
in any case, so then is that the decision then?
That's what
Yeah.
I
yeah,
Sounds
Metal
like
Gear, yeah.
Okay, so just to reiterate to our listeners, after a long, trying, bloody, not that bloody, actually this was fairly civil.
Yeah.
Fairly
Not like
well.
N64.
And we have come up with a very diverse list of games for you to go try on GameCube, which are Paper Mario The Thousand Year Door, Metroid Prime, Super Mario Strikers, The Legend of Zelda The Wind Waker, and Metal Gear Solid The Twin Snakes. I think this is honestly probably one of our best Essentials lists we've ever created. Kudos, everybody. Good job.
Yay.
I can go at Wendy's.
We did it.
So anyway, thank you everybody for listening. We hope that you enjoyed part 2 of this GameCube Essentials podcast. Please hit like and subscribe. You know, if you're a Geno fan, we're still counting down those days. There's going to be a direct soon. Your dreams are going to be crushed, and then we'll never mention you again. Just as Geno will never be mentioned again, other than our Geno. We love our Geno.
For a second, I thought you were talking about our Geno.
It's like,
No. No. But in any case, like, subscribe, hit us up on Spotify. If you want to weigh in on the GameCube discussion, throw a comment. We are going to continue our Essential series sometime in the future. We still got some handhelds, we still got some systems, and we're going to keep going. So thank you for tuning in, and farewell.
See ya.
Bye.
Bye. Listening.